So, as Kevin said, my name is a PowerPoint. My name is Mickey Lindsay. This is Capcom's 1991 arcade game Street Fighter II, not quite the 80s. And for all intents and purposes, this will look good on an annual review. Before I get started, there's a few things I have to preface. One, I am not a behavioral psychologist. If I'm lucky, I never will be. Two, I've been at Cerner for less than a year, so I've never actually been through the annual review cycle. And three, and probably most importantly, I am really bad at Street Fighter II. Those last couple things combined to look back at when I first joined Cerner full-time in the Developer Academy. It's the kind of place where engineers come in, they're put on a team, work on a project, they're going through their tasks and their stories, and they're trying to learn the process they will take onto a Cerner team proper. And the goal is to show that you're proficient enough to do so. There's some criteria you have to meet, there's checkboxes. If you reach that criteria, you get a plus, you're rewarded. If you fall behind a little bit, you're given a minus, which is just maybe we should figure out what's going on, corrective action, to get you back up. So when I joined the Dev Academy, I loved it. I had an amazing time. Some people's mileage may vary, but it was wonderful for me. I would go in, I was learning things I didn't know, kind of gaps from school that they just never covered or I wasn't paying attention. While I'm working on my stuff, going day to day, lunch would come around and I would eat as quick as I can so I'd go to the arcade in Innovations and play Street Fighter. And then lunch would be over and I would go back and I would work through stories, reviews, I was learning the process, I was showing my proficiencies, the day would be over and I would go back to the arcade to play Street Fighter 2. Some mornings I would wake up and I think, I could go to work early to play Street Fighter, and then I had to slow down. Let's go easy, because there was a difference here and I couldn't figure it out. I enjoyed both these things, Street Fighter and writing code in Dev Academy, but there was a difference there, and that bothered me. Turned out it was a difference in motivation. I'll be honest, I was motivated in both. I like to think I tried my best in both of those things, but there was a difference. Not in the amount of motivation, but the type. This is extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. Dev Academy is extrinsic. There's a reward and a punishment system, that plus and minus. You're reaching for a reward while trying to avoid, reprimands. And this kind of thing works really well in Dev Academy because what you're there for is to learn the process. There's some baseline skills you need and they're set out in front of you. There's no creative interpretation. You're not trying to find a way around the process. If you do, you shouldn't use them. You're there to learn the process. Street Fighter's a little bit different. And if you want to know kind of what you get out of that, it's almost nothing physical. There's no printout that says, congrats, you won. You have to look at actual psychologists. This is Edward Deci. He's been doing psychology for longer than my lifetime twice. And he talks about intrinsic motivation in his life work and breaks it down into three kind of categories that he says you're striving for. This is autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Autonomy is the power over your own actions. Competency, or some sense of mastery in your field or craft. And relatedness is the connections you have with others around you or your peers. And this is Street Fighter. See, if there's someone I don't want to play, I don't have to. Like if someone's playing Guile. Competence is, sure, I'm bad now, but I could get better. I could decide or discover kind of creative solutions to things. And relatedness is those people I play with. It's the connections I have with them. And then I graduated Dev Academy. And it was fun in Dev Academy, but I graduated, I went on my team, I looked around, and it wasn't Dev Academy, as to be expected. I looked around at my team and the teams around me, and it was Street Fighter again. Which is amazing. See, the problems you're presented with after Dev Academy on an actual team, they're non-trivial. They require creative solutions. They're not handed right out to you, and I loved it. It was perfect. I was trying to achieve a mastery. I wanted people around me to know that I was competent. The autonomy, you have way more power over the things you do day to day, and it was so great. I did a couple things I thought were very creative, not just clever, but creative. I thought they were good solutions, and one day that was recognized just in passing. But, it's nice to be recognized. Someone said, hey, I really like that. You should remember it. And I thought, exactly, yes, because competency, right? I'm trying to have a mastery, so I should remember these things. And I said, because that'll look good on an annual review. I thought I was playing Street Fighter. My team was Street Fighter, right? But that'll look good on an annual review. There's a reward for this? I was doing it for mastery, for autonomy, for relatedness, competence. But you're telling me that this whole time I'm just trying to get these rewards? It shut me down for a second, but I thought, no. One person's interpretation. Brush it off. That's fine. I moved on. I did a lot of other things, in my opinion, for autonomous reasons, things I wanted to do, and I was met with the same kind of thing, which confused me. That was a really good solution. You have an interest in mentoring DevAcademy? Have you ever considered a talk at DevCon? We really need someone on one of these teams that has an expertise in this field, which are all amazing, because they'll look good on an annual review, and it tore me down. I thought of these things were these really cool, like autonomous motivated things I was doing, but there's a reward. Now, I read Desi's stuff. I read most of Desi's stuff. Like, how could I have missed something? What could I have missed? Well, the reason, or how I could have missed this, I already told you. It turns out I am not a behavioral psychologist. I'm an engineer. I'm not a researcher. I barely know how to read. I looked back at some of Desi's stuff, and I found this guy. This is Richard Ryan. He's a colleague of Desi, a close personal friend even, and he worked a lot on this self-determination or autonomously motivated theories that Desi came up with. And it turns out he was asking similar questions. See, I was saying I'm doing these things for autonomy, for competence, but there's a reward there. Why does that feel so wrong? To paraphrase an actual psychologist's work, internalizing the reasons behind extrinsically motivated actions, like the review, they become self-determined while maintaining their assumed value. This is the value you get from a good review. These self-determined forms of motivation share autonomous aspects of intrinsic motivation, and that's the answer I was looking for. This whole time, I thought these were these very two different things. Turns out I didn't read the entire paper. There's benefit in extrinsic things. Obviously, that reward is there, but these three can still be there. Even if someone had said that'll look good on a review, why did it look good on a review? Well, clearly, if it looked good on a review, you showed a little bit of competency. You had a mastery in something, and someone took note of that. Well, if you get a good review from that, you're presented with more autonomy, more power over the things you do on a day-to-day basis, or so I'm told. I've never been through a review. If you maintain, or if you achieve autonomy and competence in this, the people around you would probably be aware of that. There's those peers, that sort of relatedness is also improved. So all of these things are one and the same. Like I thought I saw what the science said. The full science said a much better picture. See, that is the reason why I was doing all these things. That's why I wanted to give a talk at DevCon, and to be honest, for all intents and purposes, that's why this will look good on an annual review. Thank you.